Guess who's back in the house? It's your boy, the Real McCoy Boy, and this is the third episode of the Real McCoy Boy Chronicles. The first girl and only girl I ever dated ended up pregnant. Who's the daddy? So, I like to start by saying it is one more episode of the Real McCoy Boy Chronicles to go. After this, I'll set the Real McCoy Boy Chronicles aside and give you different content for the new year. So I just wanted to get these two last stories out of the way for my other content, to make way for my other content. All these stories are true. All the situations are real. These are not fake situations. Now, go watch my first episode, which was I got shot and I didn't even know it. And my second episode, I snuck to a different state and I was only 15. Now, the key players are in this story are Yvette, me, Mama McCoy, my mama, your boy, Real McCoy Boy, and Giovanni. I've talked about Giovanni before. It has known our family a little bit about Giovanni. Not to give him shed any light on him, but just a little bit. When I met Giovanni, we were 12, I believe. I had seen him around the neighborhood, and when I first saw him, he had a cast from the waist down. He had gotten a bad car accident, and they thought he was never going to walk again, but, again, by the grace of the Lord, he ended up walking again. So after he got out of the cast, we ran into each other somewhere and we hit it off instantly. My mom wasn't too happy about us being friends. She thought that he was trying to influence me, but if anybody was influencing anybody, I don't think I was influencing him or he was influencing me, but if there was some influencing going on, it was probably me influencing him, even though he already made up his mind what he wanted to be or how he wanted to be in his life when I met him. Now, later, the reason I'm telling you this is because later down the line, once I started going over to Giovanni's house, I found out that my oldest sister, I never talked to two of my older sisters. That, again, I told you before that I have people in Chicago and that they come up to Michigan to visit when we were growing up. Well, the two oldest ones knew his mom, grew up with his mom because they spent time in Michigan when they were younger. Even before I was born, actually, before Giovanni and I were born. They spent time with each other, and I found out that they were friends they grew up, and my mom, they used to spend time at my house, but I wasn't born yet, at our house with my sisters. Giovanni's mom and my sisters spent time together. They were really good friends. They got in trouble together, a lot of trouble. And I didn't know this when Giovanni and I became friends, but talking to his mom and spending time around his mom, she wanted to know who my relatives were. And when I told her who my mom was, she was like, I know your mom. I love your mom. She practically raised us. Your sisters and me and my sister used to hang out with two of your sisters. And I was like, wow, that is something, because really, I didn't have no clue. I had no clue. Neither one of us had no clue. We just felt like after that, though, that there was more to our friendship than what we thought it was, because when something, in my mind, when something like that happens, like for another situation, I don't want to get too far off, but one of my other former friends, I didn't know that my sister's boyfriend at the time, but was related to my friend that I ended up being friends with later on in the future, later on. And we found out later on that they were brothers and they were cousins and brothers and sisters to one of two of their cousins, which were a brother and a sister, was related to my friend's little brother and little sister, and I didn't know that. When we became friends, we had no clue. So my brother-in-law, air quotes, because he's just the father of my sister's two sons, but I will say my sister Janice, I talked about her before. He is related, his two little cousins, his brothers and sisters to my friends. So when I see stuff like that, I think about the fact that there's more to our friendship than what we initially thought it was, because we are connected closer than what we thought we were. But anyways, back to the story. So there's Kenyatta, that's the girl I go to school with, and I told you about Giovanni and Yvette. So Kenyatta told me that a girl wanted to meet me. She saw me walking around in the mall like every teenager does, and she wanted to meet me. And I just said, give her my number. It's cool. Give her my number. So Kenyatta gave her my number. It moved really fast. So she called me. I think we talked that day. I don't even know how long we talked that day. Then she started, once we got a little bit closer and got to know each other, she started buying me gifts. Keep in mind, I still was not, didn't have a state of mind that we were going to be in a relationship or anything like that. Not at all. Because again, this is the only and first and only girl that I ever dated, and she ended up pregnant. So we started hanging out with each other. She would borrow her mom's car and she would come get me, and we would hang out. We just was all over the place. Anywhere you saw me, you would see her. And it was moving really, really fast. And before I looked up, I guess we were in a relationship. We were a couple. And I would have never guessed that was going to transpire. I had no thoughts whatsoever to date a girl or to date a girl. So, or for her to end up pregnant. So we would spend a lot of time together. And one day she asked me, was I gay? And I take pride in being very, very honest. Keep in mind, I was only a teenager. May have been 17. And I was still living with my mom. And my dad was a minister. No one knew. It was never brought to an honest truth about what I was I gay or was I not gay? So when she asked me this, my own family, I never told my own family. So when she asked me this, I told her no. But not knowing that opened the door for her to want to start having intercourse. I only told her no because I had not said anything to anyone else in my family. What they thought is one thing, but what they knew to be 100% true or false, they didn't. And so she started pressuring me about when are we going to have, intercourse. And I was speechless. I could not come to the realization to tell her that we were or when we were. And to be honest with you, I don't even know remember how the first time we did end up having intercourse happened. Now, keep in mind, I was a teenager. You know, teenagers, especially guys, are horny. They are. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. They are more horny than females, or at least they show they're more horniness than females. Because who would the guys do it with if the females weren't horny too? So I can't say females weren't horny. Teenage females aren't horny because they are. So it came to the point where there was no putting it off anymore. And you have to remember, when you're a teenager, you're almost willing to do anything when it comes to intimacy, because especially a teenage boy. And so, although I wasn't attracted to her per se, we ended up in a relationship, and I still to this day can't tell you how we ended up in a relationship. I guess because I never objected to the relationship, my intention was just to be friends with her. And I guess since I never objected to the relationship, it turned into a relationship without me even realizing it. So we did it a lot. One night, I forgot to add this guy, Miguel Foyd. Okay? Miguel Foyd was her ex-boyfriend. Miguel was really popular in our city. Some people were scared of him. So she broke up with him. At least she said she broke up with him. But looking back in retrospect, she was dating him. I went over to her house one night, around 7, and it was dark outside. And she was like crying, or at least it was probably fake crying. I don't know if it was real or fake. But looking back, now that I'm an adult, I think that was the day that she cheated on me, if she hadn't already been cheating on me. But anyways, she would always say, I wish there's things about you that I like, and there's things about Miguel, and I wish they were all put together. Your parts, what you got, what I like about you and what I like about him, I wish they were in one person. That should have gave me for me to notice that she still liked him, but I didn't even think about that. So I went over there. She was crying, and I was like, what's wrong with you? And she was like, he slapped me. Miguel was over here and he slapped me and this and that. And then I'm like, I'm going to call him. I'm going to get in touch with him. I'm going to find out why he did something like this. I'm going to do it right now. And she stopped me. She was like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Looking back at that, she did it with him. She had intercourse with him that night. My thoughts is that she did. So Giovanni Giovanni and I spent a lot of time together. So when I was not with Yvette, I was with Giovanni. So Giovanni decided to find him a girlfriend. Hater, he was copying off of me. He just was. He was trying to follow what I was doing. Except for he never had been with a female before. Neither one of us had at this point in time. And he still has not been with a female to this day. He just used his girlfriend to say he had a girlfriend because I had a girlfriend. But to keep in mind, I don't know what he was chasing after, trying to keep up with me, because I didn't even want the girlfriend that I had. I had no intentions on, and that's being honest. We're friends now. She's cool. I love her as a person, but I did not intend on dating any girls. I did not intend on having a girlfriend. So Giovanni would invite me around his girlfriend, but then his girlfriend would bring other girls to wherever we were doing movies, whatever we did, to her house, whatever. Giovanni's girlfriend would have her friends. Giovanni's girlfriend was rich. She's very rich. And they own a lot of stuff. But anyways, so one girl, which I did not know that she liked me. For me, I was just cool with anybody that Giovanni's girlfriend brought, anybody that Giovanni would bring into our space when we were out hanging. I was cool with. I mean, I get along with people very easily. So me and your boy Real McCoy Boy and Yvette was maybe 4 to 5 months in our relationship, or whatever you decide that you want to call it. And it came to the point where she transferred from her high school to mine. And that was the 11th grade, when we were in the 11th grade. Now, I didn't ask her to do it, she did it. I didn't ask her to buy me gifts, she did it all on her own. And then after a while, when she did that, I felt almost obligated to be her boyfriend, because you know how young kids, teenagers are. They, you know what I'm saying? That's what they call it. You're going to be my girlfriend, I'm going to be your boyfriend. But keep in mind, my mind was not thinking about having a girlfriend. So for some reason, Yvette thought that I was trying to be in a relationship with Giovanni's girlfriend, one of her friends. This one girl, I'm going to call her Beth, because I can't, that might be her name. I can't remember. Becky, Beth, or something like that. But anyway, Yvette is Mexican. My girlfriend was Mexican. And Giovanni's girlfriend and her friend was Caucasian, European descent. Beth liked me. I didn't know Beth liked me. She was cool, but I didn't even really want the girlfriend that I had. So for anybody to think that I was going to get with some other girl, and I had a girl already when I wasn't intending on ever being in a relationship with a girl, I wasn't interested in Beth. So Yvette, though, broke up with me. Yvette broke up with me maybe a week before she found out she was pregnant. Now, I didn't know she was pregnant. But when she broke up with me, I had no intentions on getting back with her. Because keep in mind, I still was hanging around guys when I wasn't with her. Now, you remember I told you back in both my stories, the first episode, Real McCoy Boy Chronicle, episode 1, I got shot and didn't know it. And also in episode 2, Real McCoy Boy Chronicles, I went to a different state and I was only 15. Both of those stories, I told you how I hung out with older people and how I went to clubs. So I met a lot of guys, and I was still practicing things that weren't heterosexual practices. So, but she didn't know this. I eventually told her about it. She went out of town and came back, and I told her, yeah, I kind of did something with someone. And she was like, well, if you did it with a girl, I can kind of compete with that. But if you didn't, how can I compete with that? But she got past that. So, keeping in mind, maybe it was because I was honest with her, I don't know. But so keep in mind, she found out some type of way I was hanging out with Giovanni, his girlfriend, and Beth, and she thought that I was hanging out or Giovanni was trying to hook me up with Beth, but that wasn't the case. We're all teenagers, and you know how teenagers are. It could be a group of girls and boys just hanging out. None of them could be trying to have sex with each other, or all of them could be trying to have intercourse with each other. It just all depends. And in this case, I was just there having a good time. Like, we had a good time in our teenage years, and so I was having a good time. Well, she broke up with me. I had no intentions on asking her to come back. Yvette's mom called my mom, Mama McCoy, and told her that Yvette is pregnant. Keep in mind, I still didn't know that she was having sex with Miguel Foy, but I believe she was. And after I tell you a little bit of the rest of it, you're going to probably think she was too. So, her mom was mad at me and telling my mom, oh, he's trying to date some other girl and this and that. So my mom came and told me, Yvette pregnant. And she thinks you're messing around with that girl that you hanging out with Giovanni and them. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And my mom was like, I already knew you wasn't anyways. I know what you out there doing, but I know you're not trying to get with no other girl. And so when she told me that Yvette was pregnant, and I don't feel this way now, I regret even saying it then. But I told my mom, we were outside, I said, I'm going to tell her to get an abortion. My mom was like, if you better not dare tell that girl to get no abortion. We do not believe in that type of stuff. Keep in mind, I was young. I was a teenager. Not only was I young, but I lived a sheltered life because my dad was a minister. My mom, I was second from the baby. So you just got to understand, when you're the last two kids and you're the baby, you get babied, you kind of spoiled. They don't probably intend or try to spoil you, but you get spoiled and you're sheltered because you can't do much. When your dad's a minister, you can't do a lot. You can't do almost anything. So keeping that in mind, I still had that persona going on with me that I was still sheltered, not really out there like that. Even though I was sneaking to clubs, I still had an innocence about myself as it relates to being sheltered. And so I regret saying that I was going to have her get an abortion. She did not get an abortion. We didn't even talk about an abortion. But again, I did not try to get back with her. Even if I hadn't found out she was pregnant, I wasn't going to get back with her. Any other guy that's in a relationship with his girlfriend and they break up, they call later on down the line, and he may call her and try to get back with her, or they talk again and they get back together. Well, I had no intentions on getting back with her. I didn't want to, because that wasn't where I saw myself. Looking back, I have to be honest and say that the chain of events, I'm a believer that the chain of events, even though I could have prevented this if I'd have wore protection, if we'd have used protection, the chain of events fall into place for a reason. So the fact that she was pregnant and I didn't stay or didn't even try to go back, I regret that as well because of what I'm going through with this child that Yvette had, and we still don't know who her dad is. But I believe she's my child. I believe she is. I've met her, I've talked to her, I've been around her. I've seen her apartment. When I first met them, I went to her apartment. It looked like my apartment. So I really believe then. She has the V in her head, the widow's peak in her head. Her son, my grandchild, I think. Again, who's the daddy? He had the widow peak. She won't let him grow it though. She keeps having it cut off his head. But he has the widow's peak as well. But so I didn't want her back. I wasn't gonna go back to her. Now, fast forward to her having the kid. She's in the hospital, and I go to the hospital. I have a teddy bear. I think I have a baby outfit and a teddy bear. And I see the baby, and of course you cannot tell if the child looks like you just by a newborn baby. So I spent a little time with Yvette by her hospital bed, and we talked and this and that. But we didn't discuss was the kid mine or not. She calls me and says to me, "You don't have to come back here anymore. Come visit the child, come see the child, because it's not yours." I'm like, in my mind, I was so happy. I helped raise a lot of nieces and nephews. Three of them grew up in my house as I was growing up. So, and I just said to myself when they were little, crying and whining, I don't want any kids. I don't ever want any kids. So, when she said that, I was so happy. I'm just gonna be honest. I was so happy. But I shouldn't have let her tell me that. Because I think the kid is mine. She's 30, 32, I believe. And I believe she is my daughter. But she has a hard time dealing with this. Like, now Yvette disappeared after she told me that wasn't my kid. I could have done a DNA test and all that, but I didn't because I didn't want any kids. So I was happy that she released me from the responsibility. But I believe my life spiraled into something that I hadn't intended on spiraling into because I abandoned that child before I knew whether she was my daughter or not. And I still regret it. Now, Yvette married, I think, 2 men, maybe 3 different men. And a couple of those men, she told her child that those guys were her dad. And she was also made to believe that Miguel Void was her dad. Now, come to find out, okay, so Yvette disappeared. She was living her life. She was married, so I hadn't seen her. But as I got older and realized the importance of family more than ever, even though I guess I can say that I know it was important, my brothers and sisters, but family, period, it should have been important to me. And back then I was a kid, just want to go do whatever I wanted to do. And I wasn't even thinking about that. But once I realized, I started looking for Yvette and the child I call my daughter. And I couldn't find him. I could not. Giovanni helped me. We couldn't find him. So I ended up in another city in Michigan. That's where I live now. And Giovanni would come visit me there because he moved close to that city. And he saw her on Facebook. He saw Yvette on Facebook. And he called me. And he was like, I found Yvette. I think he called her before he called me and told her that I had been looking for them because I wanted to settle this and find out if this is really my child. Which, again, I believe she is. Pray for me that we can settle this before either one of us leaves this earth. But right now, we're still in talks. Okay, so I found Yvette. I called Yvette and it was like, I've been looking all over for you guys. I want to know whether or not this girl is my child. So Yvette agreed to meet up with me. She had other kids. She was married. I met her husband. He really took a liking to me. He understood that that was a past situation and he wanted to support me in this situation. But his only support was to tell me, just give her time to come around. So I invited her to a all-you-can-eat dinner with my family. I think it was my mom's birthday. It may have been Mother's Day. It was one of those. We were celebrating my mom. And she came. After she left, she went home. She just kept staring at me. I think she, and deep down in her heart, knew what the deal was. But she did not know. No one has told her anything verbally. Yvette was there. Her mom, Yvette, was there. She was there at the dinner. And my brothers and sisters was like, well, she doesn't look like you. Well, my brother's kids, they all look like him. But she looks like them. Like, she reminds me of my brother's daughters. Okay, so I just said, well, maybe Yvette's genes are stronger than the McCoy genes. So she left and went home. Her boyfriend went to school with me, but I didn't know her boyfriend went to school with me. My daughters, I'm going to call her my daughter. My daughters, but I still don't know if she is. My daughter's boyfriend went to school with me. He was older than her. And he went to school with my brother, but he knew me. Everybody that knew my brother knew that my brother had another brother, which was me. And he told her, he must be about, your boy, real McCoy boy, must be about to die. Her boyfriend said that he knew me and I didn't look this way when he knew me. Yvette told our daughter, yes, he does. He looks exactly like he looked when we went together. So I don't know what your boyfriend, Dele, is her boyfriend. I don't know what Dele's talking about because Dele is lying to you right now because Real McCoy boy still looks the same. Because she was wondering why I was around and why I invited her. My daughter was wondering this. So I believe in her mind, she knew. She probably was like, we look alike. In her mind, she probably was thinking that we looked alike. But anyway, so Dele told her this. And she went back and told her mom. Because they had to have this conversation. This was the time they had the conversation that I was around trying to find out whether I was her dad or not. So she was like, there's nothing wrong with Real McCoy boy. He looks exactly the same. He thinks he's your dad. He thinks I cheated on him. So in my mind, she just didn't want to look bad in front of our daughter. So she says to her, he thinks I cheated. You did cheat on me, Yvette. You cheated on me. But I'm not mad at you cheating on me. I just want to know who is this young lady, our child together. And I still would like to know that. Now, once she found out, she cried and she told Yvette, her mom, I'm not getting a DNA test, and you can't make me get a DNA test, and I'm not getting one. So we left it alone. So we hung out, my daughter and I and her mom. We hung out on several occasions, partly because I wanted to get to know her, and Yvette wanted me to get to know her, because no matter what Yvette says, she believes it too. And this is the kicker. Miguel was supposed to be her dad, but when the DNA test was supposed to be given to Miguel, nobody knew this. Nobody knew this. Yvette's mom, my daughter's grandma, told Yvette that he went and got the DNA test and he's the child's dad. But she knew that it wasn't. She knew that he had not found that out. And so once I got to see them and got to meet back up with them in the later years, Yvette said that I called the courts and they said that Miguel was in jail when at the time he was supposed to do a DNA test. He never did the DNA test. Now that sparked in my brain that it's even more possible for her to be my child. So we spent a lot of time together. Now, one day we went to this club, Yvette, my child, and I, and she was telling people, well, he's supposed to be my dad, and just random people that was at the club. And when we got back and sat down, she told me that. She's like, I was telling him he was supposed to be my dad, but I really don't want to know. And I told her I didn't want to know either, but I lied to her. And I'm big on telling the truth. I'm big on being honest up front, but I lied to her about that. When it came out of my mouth, and my mind was going, I do want to know if you're my child. You got relatives, I got a big family, you need to know these people. You got uncles and aunts, you need to know these people. And you definitely in the same city, and I don't want one of your kid dating somebody related to me. So they need to know their cousins. So she didn't want to know. We're still at this crossroads, and we don't know if she's my daughter. We never got a blood test. We just simply don't know. Her kids are almost grown now. I spent time with them, as much time as I could over the years. I spent my grandson, he's the youngest. I spent a lot more time. He loved him some me. And he automatically, soon as he met me, I was holding him in my arms from when he was 2 years old, I was holding him and he didn't cry. He didn't even know me, but he let me carry him around, and he really took a liking to me. The daughter, she likes me too, but we didn't get so much closer than me and the boy and I. So now we're here, and we still don't know. Again, we still don't know whose child this person is. She does not know who her dad is. Now, she is continuously calling Miguel her dad, but I don't think he's her dad. I think I'm her dad. Hopefully, I will come back with an episode of the Real McCoy Boy Chronicles in 2025 with an answer that who the child's dad really is, or if the child is not my child. Hopefully, Lord willing, I will be able to come back and do that in 2025. Who knows? I won't stop trying, but right now, every time I try to reach out to her, she has an anxiety about it. Which to me, that tells me even more that she probably is my child, because I'm like that. There's so many traits that she has. She's brutally honest. I am. She will tell you like it is. I will. And anyone that needs to hear something that they want it to be true, they will come to me and ask me. Like, they will. Even my own mom in a situation did that. I won't bring up that situation, but I'm just saying, because they know me over the years, how open and upfront that I've always been. So that is the end of the story. I am working towards trying to find out if this is my child right now. I do not know if this is my child. I wouldn't even know what to do if she was, because we have spent so much time apart from each other. She keeps staying apart. I've reached out to her on several occasions, and she always comes up with some type of excuse, because she always says, I'm just not ready to deal with this yet. So hopefully we can go out to lunch, sit down, and I can tell her the story about her and her mom, her mom and I's relationship, and how I ended up not being in her life. Yes, it's true. I take part in some of it, but her grandma should take responsibility for a vast majority of it. Oh, I want to say this. When Yvette called me, I want to go back just a little bit, from the hospital and told me not to visit the kid anymore and not to buy the kid anything anymore. Right after that, she said, well, how do you... And she said it wasn't mine. In the same breath, on the same phone call, she says to me, how can you tell your child, how do you tell your child that their parent is gay? And I told her, you just tell them when they're old enough to know, hear it. That solidified in my mind that she still thinks that child is mine. Now, I take responsibility for not pursuing it before I bailed out of the situation. And if my daughter would sit down with me and let me explain to her how I ended up not in her life, maybe she'll give us a chance and we'll get a DNA test and find out. But honestly, I can't tell you. But we are both still around. I don't know if the good Lord is keeping us around for us to find this out, or for something bigger. But we are still around. We do still keep in contact with each other, but not as much as we should. So hopefully, and I hope you guys are rooting for me, I'll find out this year if this year is new things happening, and maybe this will be a new thing in chapter of my life that I can finally put to rest. That is this child mine. So, the first girl I ever dated, first and only girl I ever dated, ended up pregnant. Who is the daddy?